right, thank you. Welcome you all to this nutrition in children's webinar. So I'll hand over to Halima to start now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of Nutrition Conversations Africa. My name is Halima Dabana, co-lead for NCAfrica. On behalf of Wandiville and the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN, we thank you for joining today to discuss nutrition in children, a critical factor for Africa's future. Nutritious Conversations Africa, which we call NCAfrica, is an advocacy platform aimed at illuminating African nutritional challenges and opportunities, transformative ideas, and game-changing solutions through continuous conversations, call to action, advocacy support, and engagement to curb malnutrition in Africa. Our aim is to solve the large gap in awareness and knowledge on nutrition matters on the continent through policy, advocacy, and media to bridge the gap and drive multifaceted engagement for our audience. Today, we are excited to bring together experts in the field of children's nutrition and health, working towards providing solutions and mitigating the problems of malnutrition across Africa. To this end, we encourage active audience participation. So please add your questions and comments throughout this session into the Q&A box, and they will be attended to during the Q&A session. There will be opportunities to address all questions, or as many as we can take given the time. So to begin the program, I am pleased to introduce and welcome Aderonke Alabi, the co-lead of NCAfrica, with whom I'll be co-facilitating this webinar. So over to you, Aderonke.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Halima, and to all our speakers and guests. Welcome to this edition of Nutrition Conversations Africa. We are very excited to be able to have this discussion on children's nutrition. Good nutrition in childhood has long been recognized as a great concern in Africa, and the first 1,000 days of life, which is from the period of conception to 2 years, is a stage for cognitive development, learning behavior, mental capacity, and immunity. Children need to be fed with adequate nutrients to support their growing bodies and their brain. And since rapid growth occurs during these first 2 years of life, this period of life is sensitive to nutritional deficiencies in their diet. So malnourished children under the age of 5 are more likely to have lower productivity in adulthood. That is, they're more likely to be unemployed and in poverty. This implies the economy of a country in the sense that the gross domestic product of the country is lost. So children with adequate and optimal nutrition are assets to the future of a country and the continent at large. So Halima will be taking us through this panel session for today. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. All right, Halima, over to you.
All right, thank you, Ronke. So as we mentioned earlier, in today's session, we would be discussing nutrition in children, a critical factor for Africa's future. So joining us today are 4 very distinguished panelists. It's a very special all-women panel today. As we work our way through the session, please put your questions in the Q&A box. So I'd like to begin this discussion with Ms. Vera Osei-Bonsu, the founder and CEO of Start Right Nutrition. She is the founder and CEO of Start Right Nutrition Limited and Eat Smart Nutrition, which was discovered based on her innovative ideas in blending food products to produce varieties of foods with adequate nutrients. She was selected in 2019 to represent Ghana at the African Green Revolution Forum, AGRF, and also awarded as the most inspiring woman in food and nutrition in the year 2019. So good morning, Ms. Vera. Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Good morning, Halima. Good morning. I hope you can all hear me as well.
Yes, we can hear you. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as well.
All right, so let's get into it. As the founder of Start Right Nutrition and also Eat Smart Nutrition, which both focus on young children's diets, why is children's nutrition so critical under the age of 5 years? And what impact does it have on their future health and productivity?
First of all, I would like to thank Nutrition Conversations Africa for the opportunity for us to discuss a very important topic at this times we find ourselves in. That is after the upsurge of the coronavirus, which has disrupted a lot of policies or interventions that were put in place to ensure that children are being well nourished on the African continent. Talking about why it is important for children to have access to the right nutrition, especially children under the age of 5 years? I think it's a very good question because children right from conception, that's a 0 day, when we are giving birth to, must have access to the right nutrition for them to be able to build their physical and cognitive development. So when you come to my country, Ghana Health Service, which is a branch or an organization that is under the Ministry of Health that advocates for healthy child nutrition, they speak a lot about the 6 months exclusive breastfeeding system in the country, which I can say that quite a number of women have started practicing that. This is because of the added advantage that comes with a child being, first of all, put on breast milk, which is very high in nutrients, and it ensures that the child is also getting very good cells division, because children under 5 years undergo a lot of cells division, which results in their physical cognitive development. Children under 5 years also are very much prone or susceptible to childhood diseases. So at this time, nutrition becomes a bedrock or a foundation which can help them to become healthy. You also agree with me that nutrition is the best gift every caregiver or every country can give to children, because as you rightly said in the introduction, healthy population results in high GDP growth of every country. So if we are not nourishing our children well across the African continent, you can anticipate what will happen to these children when they are old. Because when we are also old and gone, the children will become those to take over. And nutrition can be the best gifts that we can give them. Children under 5 years also, they need a lot of access to key nutrition or key nutrients, which when we talk about vitamins, we are talking about energy, carbohydrate, folate, iron, fats, we can mention. They need access to these key nutrients at this time for them to be healthy, for them to reach their various milestones, because they will need a lot of energy in crawling, in walking, in order to absorb a lot of information. Consequently, a child who is not well fed would have a shorter memory, would not have a good growth, and it can result in what? Malnutrition, which accounts to about a lot of deaths in children in Africa. So what we must do as caregivers, that in the first 5 years of a child's life, we must ensure that we are going in for the right food choices. We are practicing good feeding systems in the house, because in the African continent, you know that nutrition is passed from generation to generation. It is highly influenced by tradition. So if you come to Ghana, for instance, we have a lot of ethnic groups, and they believe in certain foods than others. But what we must know as caregivers, whether you are introducing a different food or a different staple to your child, it must be balanced. It must have all the nutrients your child needs, especially within the first 5 years, because giving your child the best nutrition is the best gift you are giving to your child for your child to pass on to the next generation. And a healthy child is also likely not to attract certain diseases in later life, such as diabetes, cancer, etc. Once they are fed well, you are assured that you are building them up to be strong, to build the economy, in which we are looking at Africans becoming our own helpmates, becoming our own people that will build our continent. So if we have a lot of policies, a lot of practices, a lot of funding that goes into good nutrition for a formidable part of our population, that is children, then we are putting them on the right path for development. So in the first 5 years, nutrition for children cannot be underestimated. Thank you. That is what I would say.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Vera. That was very insightful. So to build on this conversation, I would like to introduce Ms. Mboka Mwanitu, the founder and chair of ONA Foundation, which champions the Lishe Yango initiative in schools. Ms. Mwanitu was born and raised in Tanzania and has spent her entire career since graduate school in 2005 within the agriculture industry, including 10 years in agribusiness, food and nutrition, and rural inclusion. with specific recent past 5 years on projects for inclusive investment and agricultural finance. She's also an ambassador for Rural Inclusion Tanzania with Rural Inclusion CIC UK, working towards building partnership and collaboration to deepen financial literacy in rural settings. Recently trained by Ngozi Institute Africa as a leader and champion for change. Her drive, passion, and influence is on policy, food and nutrition, inclusive finance and investment, women, youth, and children's programs across Africa and the world. So good morning, Ms. Mpoka. Thank you for joining us today. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. And I must apologize. I had some emergencies and yeah, I just joined in right now. But I'm glad to be here and I'm happy to be speaking to this Conversation Africa forum. I think it is in the light of celebrating the African Day and the Child of Africa. Yeah. So I think you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. Thank you once again for being here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to ask you, what do you do as Lishe Yangu?
So at Lishe Yangu, what we actually do specifically is to educate about nutrition. And it's a homegrown initiative which was started in Tanzania and my own founding. And this was in the wake of me being a mother for the first time. So I realized nutrition is a very important aspect, and especially on the subject of 1,000 days. So I understand a majority of you here understand well about nutrition, and definitely I want to speak more on the connection about nutrition and the economic aspect and financial aspect, and again with the prosperity of the country and again for the continent. So in respect to address the understanding of what people know about food and nutrition. We normally take food as easy as it is, but when, for example, you become a mother, when you have a child who is, you see how a food that you're feeding of the child. So it was at the wake of this point, I realized it's not at the end where we are grown-ups that we understand that nutrition is important. It's actually at this tender age or developmental stage, nutrition becomes very important. So while I wanted to send a message across to mothers, I realized there are a lot of cultural and norms that were like barriers to engage more with mothers. But also I appreciated that the government is already facilitating at the primary healthcare levels to support under fives. So out of this, I said, okay, after the baby are grown and they are at 5 years or 6 years old of age, they transit from home going to school or to other spaces where they might be eating away from home. So this is where that I thought nutrition initiative, Lishe initiative would be an element or a platform to send that message across for these children, and also making sure that they become change agents. So it was at this stage I had to transit from sending the message to the mothers and now engaging with school children, where I had to work directly with school-going age children. And the basic entry was engaging with them at a school level. So we started the initiative together with graduates from Sokoine University, where we were engaging with specific graduates who are doing food and nutrition and consumer behavior, so that they can send the message to the schools and engage with the school children. So since 2018, we have seen a success where we realized that the gap that was there, it was more on the knowledge. And of course, knowledge at different stages, from the children themselves as students, the teachers, and of course, the entire community around the schools, because there are also food vendors around the schools. So with Lishe Yangu, we successfully engaged with more than 30 schools in Tanzania. in the regions of Kagera, Tanga, and Morogoro, where it's our HQ base. And basically, we want to send a message that our local produce, they are very effective in terms of addressing the nutrition aspect, but how best are we using local produce? Are we connecting with farmers? Are we connecting with the SMEs? I see here we have different SMEs showcasing the product. How are these products understood by children? Because these are the key change agents later in their lives. So with us, we thought that a well-being of a child after transiting from a mother going to school is very important, because they also spend a lot of time at school, more than 3/4 of their daily engagement at school. It's purely either learning, playing, and eating. So this is why we launched the Lishiangu initiative, to make sure that we provide nutrition knowledge to children, but as well to the other communities around the school, especially the food vendors and the kitchen ladies, and of course the parents and teachers. Yeah, if I can end there.
Yes, wow, thank you so much. So you're addressing the children themselves as well as the key change agents. Yeah, so that's very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. So at this point, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Ms. Hope Ikani. Ms. Hope is the project coordinator for the Eggs Makes Kids project by Wandiville. She coordinates the demand creation and marketing campaign, Eggs Makes Kids, funded by USAID, aimed at improving dietary diversity and ensuring adequate availability and intake of nutritious foods, which are vital to give children the best possible start in life. With partnership support and engagement from the Kaduna State Government and the Poultry Association of Nigeria, both Kaduna and Ogun State chapters, egg vendors, and creative agencies, this campaign utilizes multiple communication channels to create a strong emotional appeal to increase the willingness of the caregivers to buy eggs and feed them to their children. She also has strong project management experience and is an advocate for the strengthening of food systems. So good morning, Ms. Hope. Good to have you here with us today. Okay, so while we wait for Ms. Hope's microphone issues to get sorted, I would like to introduce the next panelist, Ms. Sheung Shongoleye, who's the founder and CEO of Baby Grubs. So Ms. Sheung Shongoleye is an experienced nutrition educator and manufacturer of packaged infant meals and snacks made from grains, fruits, and vegetables called Baby Grubs, which is a social enterprise based in Lagos, Nigeria, with operations in Togo and Ghana. She has published ebooks on child nutrition and provides online mentoring to over 350,000 Nigerian mothers across her social media platforms. Also, she's a social entrepreneur that is committed to improving childhood nutrition and impact women's financial inclusion positively. So good morning, Ms. Sheung. Can we have you please? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, sorry. I said, how did Baby Grubs start? Why did you think that it was necessary to start Baby Grubs?
Okay, thank you very much, Alima. Thank you everyone for joining this very important occasion. I think that every opportunity to talk about nutrition is very, very important. So I do not have a background in nutrition, but I was thrust into nutrition when I had my son. And so I think around his 3rd month, I was to go back to work. And, I started introducing formula to him, and he was not interested in tasting any of the formulas. I bought, I think, about 5 tins of formula, but he didn't take any of them. And so I started asking around about what to do, but I got a lot of conflicting responses. And I also went online to search, but everything I found, I found a lot of information, but I didn't really find a lot of things that were local. Most of the things I found were from Canada, the US, other European countries. And so there was nothing local. And that was a bit worrisome for me. Why aren't we talking about our children? Nigeria has a lot of children. And so why don't we talk about it? And so I sort of took on that responsibility myself, and I started an online blog at that time. And so I started sharing all of the information I found. I found out that we could make purees from carrots. We can make a lot of things from local foods that we have. And, and so I started, talking about it a lot. At that time, as the stats have not really changed much, 90% of what we consume in Nigeria generally, they are imported foods. And so I had to, start talking about the local solutions that we have. And before you knew it, I became, your go-to person when you talk about nutrition in Nigeria. And so, but something that happened along the line, because my background was not nutrition, and so most of the meals I was making for my son and talking about were plant-based, and they weren't so balanced. And so my son developed rickets around, I think that was around his 9th month or so. And so when I went to the hospital to get solution and all of that, I was made to understand that nutrition was at the forefront of all of this. And so the dietitian then recommended a number of foods. Being a foodie myself, I didn't really like the foods that were recommended. They weren't so tasty, but I understood the importance of how it should be nutritious. And so what I did was, using my science background, I basically reduced them to formulas. And so I realized that they needed to be high in vitamin D, they needed to be high in calcium, how to combine the nutrients for maximum nutrient absorption, and so basically I threw myself into the nutrition components or the science behind the nutrition. And so, yes, I nursed my son back to health. In 3 months or less, I think he was perfectly fine. And so, but one other thing that it was my great takeaway from that experience was, one, the importance of nutrition. And then two, there were lots of moms like myself at the hospital during that period with their children. And so I did a lot of digging, and then I realized that Nigeria has a lot of nutrition-related issues. In fact, as I speak with you, the statistics is that 2,300 Nigerian children will die today from nutrition-related illnesses, and it's a daily thing. And it shows you how important nutrition is. Children shouldn't be dying from malaria. They shouldn't be dying from diarrhea and other, other illnesses like that. But when their immunity is not strong, they become highly susceptible to these illnesses. And closely related are the mothers. Nutrition, I think it was the first speaker, Vera, that spoke about importance of nutrition in the first 1,000 days. You also said it during the introduction. And this cycle can only be broken if we tackle it from, an holistic point of view. And when I say an holistic point of view, and our baby growth and our approach to ending malnutrition, and so we realize that the first 1,000 days starts with maternal nutrition, and then it goes on to when your child is born. And so if you don't get it right in the first 1,000 days, it will lead to stunted growth, poor cognitive abilities, and then goes on to reduce school performance, which also leads to reduced work performance as the child grows and becomes an adult. And then you have an adult that cannot be 100% performer in a workplace because they didn't even have the good grades to start with. Some of them might not even be able to go to the university because their brain might not be, have the full capacity to comprehend all that they need to learn and know. And so you have that cycle of poverty going on and on. So that adult also now gives birth to another adult, another baby. They are not 100% healthy, and they are not able to give the fetus, all of the nutrients. And then the child gets born again. And then, that cycle goes on and on. And so for us at Baby Grubs, we enlist mothers, and we leverage the strength of mothers in the fight against malnutrition. And how do we do this? We we empower mothers, one, to be economically independent. So women are exclusive distributors of our baby food. They put the products in supermarket shelves. They sell in their communities. But also, one other thing we do is that we also empower them with basic nutrition education. And so they also now in their communities, they become what you would call nutrition champions. You know, they do peer-to-peer mentoring, and which is very effective because, you know, when I spoke about my own challenges, the first set of people I spoke to were my church members. They were also my, you know, my neighbors and all of that. So mothers are important, and that's what we do at Baby Grubs. And to date, we have been able to transform the nutritional status of over 200,000 children. We've been able to empower over 200 mothers and across West Africa. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, I've unmuted myself now. So the statistics you mentioned are actually very frightening. So thank you for stepping up when you identified the need for your own child and for the children of others. You are very appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Hope, can we try you again? Good morning.
Good morning, Halima. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. It's really nice to have you here, but it's a bit noisy around you.
Yeah, so it's a bit noisy here. Today we're flagging off the campaign for the Egg in project in Ogun State. So it's a bit noisy, but please bear with me. If you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Okay, so speaking of the project, could you please give us a very brief overview of the Eggs Makes Kids project and what it hopes to achieve? Let's keep it brief, please.
Yes, so like you said, let's keep it brief because if we're going to be, you know, talking about everything, it's going to take a lot of time. So I'll try and keep it short and simple as possible. So the Egg Makes Kids campaign was an initiative. It was an initiative by the global organization, Alliance for Improved Nutrition Gain. They started it because they noticed that in improving diversity and ensuring adequate availability and intake of nutrition foods are vital to children to give them the best possible start in life. So that was what prompted the campaign because there was the statistics at that time, as of 2018, children in Nigeria, we have many malnourished children, and about 40 something percent fall under the Northwest, and which Kaduna State was part of it. And so that was what prompted that gave birth to the campaign. So now currently, Wonderville is leveraging on the existing structure and the work that has been done by GAIN in Kaduna State to, you know, we're trying to step in and continue that work, and we're working with them. And what we're doing, we're being funded by USAID. We're trying to see how we can improve nutrition diversity in children. And from the pilot phase, one of the things, why not eggs? Because if you're talking about a state that is malnourished, you'll be saying, okay, people there don't earn enough. People don't earn enough to feed their children properly. So we're thinking, why not eggs? Egg is very affordable. I mean, even plus all the inflation and everything that has happened, egg is still like the cheapest protein out there. And so why not egg? Egg is good. Egg has a shelf life. Egg has a casing of its own. It avoids contamination. You know, it is milk. When you don't put milk in the fridge, after some time, it just deteriorates. An egg comes with its own protective casing, which is accessible. An egg is accessible to everyone. So we thought, why not go with it? So that was the basis of the campaign.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hope, for giving us that overview of the Wonderville Egg Makes Kids project. So I would just like to add that if anyone out here would like to have more information about the Egg Makes Kids project, please visit any of the Wonderville social media channels. You would find a lot of information about it there. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, let's have one more question for you, Ms. Mboka. So could you tell us, please, could you shed some light on the role of school feeding programs in stimulating school attendance and participation?
Okay, thank you, Halima. And I'm now on the movement. So for any background noise, I'll be Sorry if you can interrupt me if you cannot hear me clearly. So through the Lishengu initiative, we realized that in terms of providing meals at school, first, it's a social protection tool, because we understand as the way life is fast pacing, parents, most of them are busy. So kids go to school without having anything in their stomach. And when I say anything, it even says remote areas. Like if you look at Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, it's a commercial city, but when we talk about Dodoma, it's more a capital city, but it's in the middle of Tanzania. So how much vast Tanzania is, most of the kids might be going to school without having breakfast. So for us, we realized that campaigning for having school feeding programs in school, it's also provide as a social protection tool for kids, especially for those who are vulnerable or who are staying away from the cities or in remote. So no matter how much government has supported to increase the enrollment level at primary school, but the assertiveness of the kids being in class and attending in class has been much more like a setback, because most of kids stay in class while they're hungry, so they cannot even be attentive and listening to their teachers. So if any school provide at least even twice a week or 3 times a week meals at school, the attendance becomes much higher and in that week. And of course, the assertiveness and being punctual in class become even higher, because they know that after a session, maybe in the morning, maybe at 10 o'clock in the morning, they'll have a cup of porridge. So for me, the school feeding program has effective in that way. And also in terms of looking at the performance, we have been engaging with the primary school and also secondary schools. So at the level of secondary school, it's like at the end point, from that point, you make a child grow into becoming an adult. And this is like a transition stage of adolescent or reproductive age. But most of these students, when they are graduating, they come out, probably they don't know how to write, and they don't know how to speak, and even mathematically, they cannot even calculate things. So given that we have been tracking from students who are finishing standard 7, or they are just in grade 6 and going to higher upper secondary school, we have seen some improvement. And specifically for Morogoro, if I can speak, there's a school that we were engaging with. It's a secondary school, a form 1 grade, and this one will be for other African countries, maybe a 10th grade or 11th grade, would be much more committed and would be listening much more higher and being performing compared to if the school is providing meals compared to a school, because in most cases these kids, they stay in class maybe for 8 hours, but if that child is staying far from the school, she or he has to wait until they get back home at some point. So you find that even the commitment of being there and learning, and of course preparing him or herself for exams and for performance, it becomes not easy for this child, because the time that this child is waiting to get back home and eat, it's so long. So particularly at this school, where a school feeding program was not there, when we campaigned and advocated, introduced a school feeding program, and they started to feed kids at school. And this was like a supportive program where parents and teachers are supporting each other, but again, they are contributing, because these school feeding programs, they're very diversified. There are schools which are able to do it, like they include the fee in the fees for the meals in the school fees. But there are schools where parents contribute meals, they provide what they harvest, and the meal is being cooked. So we realized that in schools where school feeding is done, even these upper grade level students, they perform better. So I can say the school feeding program is effective, and if we could only advocate for its sustainability, we should be talking about a homegrown school feeding program where parents participate fully and realize their responsibility in terms of contributing to that program. Because having a handover program where a donor comes in and maybe support in terms of the grant, it becomes not sustainable. And for us, since we have started, we indicated that we want this to be functional and sustainable by having a homegrown where parents become a key participant to the program. And right now for Tanzania, we already have a national primary school feeding program, which it was launched last year. And through this, we have been part and parcel of contributing our experience and lessons. So we also championed to make sure that government endorse this school feeding guideline. And we believe that with this guideline, most of the schools in Tanzania, no matter where they are, they would follow specifically in respect and customize within their setting how to do the school feeding program. And we continue to support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mboka.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so Ms. Vera, we have one more question for you. Could you please tell us just one major challenge that caregivers face in providing nutritious meals to their children and how you believe it can be tackled?
Okay, so this challenge that I'm going to touch on, I think it has a lot of factors under it. That is, there are a lot of education that is going on talking about feed your child with balanced food, feed your child with balanced food. But most of these educations usually are in a theory form. When it comes about putting these theoretical things we are talking about, balanced foods, into practical means, that is where the issue is. So I was so happy when I heard Shewun saying that what she does is that she demonstrates what it means to say you are feeding your child a balanced food, because most caregivers, after the 6 months exclusive breastfeeding, when they are now about to introduce balanced food or complementary foods, that's where the issue is. They are not able to create a lot of varieties. From existing ingredients that they have around them. They are not able to make the right food choices. And also, they are not able to get access to a lot of food options for their children. So what they do is just move the child to what has been passed on to them. So for instance, in Ghana, when you come, we have what we call the imorikoko, it's white corn porridge. That is what has been handed over to us, that when you want to wean your child, that's the first food you should introduce. And it's mostly almost 99% carbohydrate. So a lot of practical means of how you can incorporate other ingredients to ensure that the child is getting access to balanced food is what we should be dwelling on. Women should be taught through videos. They should be taught through illustrations, images in churches, in communities, at vaccination centers, in the rural areas. They can be taught how to come up with balanced food to feed their children. Because it's not only about what is written, what is written, what is written. How do we transform what is written into something that must be practical? And this, let me chip in, also goes to agro-processors. When we are combining food ingredients for children, do we go further to test these food ingredients to ensure that they have all the necessary nutrients that children need? Or we are just combining it at the comfort of our home and we are selling to earn money? In Ghana like this, you have to take your food combinations to Ghana Standard Authority. They will check the nutrition facts to ensure that what you are selling out to children is meeting that demand or meeting that nutritional value. Because food combination, how you combine food to feed children right from 6 months and above, is very crucial to ensure that this menace of malnutrition is brought to the barest minimum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vera. And I would like to say a very big thank you to all the panelists for joining us today and for sharing your insights and perspective. It has been so awesome speaking with you all. So I would let Aderonke take over from here as we transition into the question and answer session. Thank you all once again.
All right, thank you, Halima. Thank you to our distinguished panelists for this insightful and impactful conversation as regards nutrition in children. So now we'll move into the question and answer session. And please endeavor to drop your questions in the Q&A box. So I'll move to Ms. Vera now. I'll direct this question to you, Ma. So we are aware that every parent wants the best for their child. So they perceive buying expensive foreign foods as the best option, but these aren't always available or affordable. So for instance, now the current baby formula shortage in the USA, which is causing prices to rise. What are the indigenous foods that we can encourage parents to feed their children with, and how can we convince them to do so? Thank you, Ma.
Yeah, this is a very good question. We are talking about building children up, which is critical for the African future. You know, imported food is not only about shortage, but at times the question is, are they very much nutritious and fresh? Because mostly they have to go through importation before it gets to a particular country. And mostly all ingredients put in it are usually not declared. So some are very high in sugar levels, which are not really healthy for children. It's about time that in the African continent, we can add value to ingredients we find ourselves around with to nourish ourselves and also trade amongst ourselves. Like if you have somebody in Nigeria doing a baby food and it's good, ways that it can come to the Ghana borders and Ghana foods can also go so that it will be building our own economies around ourselves. Also, when you come to Ghana, for instance, when you go to other African countries, we have foods that are rich in nutrients. Talk about legumes, talk about grains, talk about fruits and vegetables. But it is quite unfortunate that we've developed a culture of seeing imported things as superior to things that are done locally. Locally, few agro-processors add preservatives. Most local foods which are made are free of preservatives. So that is also even a plus for us to patronize our own than always thinking about the imported foods. And also as a mother, the comfort of your home, as I said, if you have the practical means of how to feed balanced foods, you can combine them successfully. You can look out for food ingredients that do not easily provoke allergies in children, but are rich in nutrients. Then you add value in. So much time should be given to children when feeding them. We shouldn't think about only daddies or mummies in the house, but children, there must be particular effort. So I encourage all mothers or caregivers who have joined us, it's about time we start looking at our natural ingredients which are around us, add value to them to nourish ourselves. Instead of relying about 90% on imported foods, which have flooded the shelves of the African continent.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. Thank you. All right, does Ms. Shemun have any contributions to add to what Ms. Vera had already said? Ms. Shemun, do you have any contributions?
I also think that, thank you for that beautiful question and insightful comments by Vera. I think also that we also should pay attention to certain things and not get carried away by concussions. You know, most mothers want to DIY, and you know, when it comes to children's health, no, please don't DIY. Children can take family food, and then also I would also mention that caregivers need to understand that breastfeeding is still very, very important. Sometimes we relegate breastfeeding when the child starts complementary foods. And that's the word complementary means that, you know, they're supposed to complement one another. So I would also mention that breastfeeding should not stop. It should continue till at least 2 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vera. So I have a question for you, Ma. Okay, so children sometimes are uninterested in some meals. So what are the strategies we can do to improve the acceptance of these healthy meals by a child, especially a child that is a picky eater? So how can a mother go about this? Thank you. Over to you, Ma.
I always say that we should not be quick to label children as picky eaters.
Okay.
I'll just say that we need to understand what they are trying to communicate. I mean, we as adults, we prefer some food items over some other ones. And so most times I just tell mothers to, you know, study their children. And then we go from likes to unlike. There's no child that will willingly want to starve themselves. And so just find out what your child likes and then keep offering. And also one most important thing is monkey see, monkey do. What you as a mother does is what your child will do. And you know,
Of
children,
course.
yes, exactly. Children, they don't do as much of what we say. They do what we do. So you should model eating healthy foods as an adult, and then your child can, you know, follow. But it's not that difficult. Try different things. And studies have also shown us that you might need to introduce an unliked food or a new food up to 15 to 20 times before the child eventually takes it. So patience is important. Study the child and, you know, model the right attitude.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Chion. So, Ms. Mboka, I have a question for you, ma. So, considering school feeding programs, what are some of the challenges that I encountered in ensuring that there's the effective impact of these school feeding programs in schools and among children?
I can speak. Okay. For me, in terms of the biggest challenge that I see across, probably this is an experience for Tanzania, but it could be across Africa and continent, is sustainability of the programs. Because we understand as much as food, it's so individualistic. That's why we use the word lishe yangu, meaning it's coming straight to an individual, but taking it to the community needs a collaboration effort. So in terms of collaborating, you find partners, they might sometimes be different, and they might be struggling to come together and have one goal. So having a sustainable school feeding program, it's very, it takes a long time to agree with partners, especially to customize in terms of the social cultural, the diversity, because every individual feels that if my child is fed at home, why should I feed that child at school? So aligning and having a common goal, like we should have our safe and nutritious meals at school. This also is a struggle even to parents, because they struggle to come together and agree on a sustainable model for school feeding. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ma.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you for this awesome session. So due to time constraints, we are not unable to entertain further questions. So I'd like to conclude this question and answer session now. So thank you, Ms. Vera. Thank you, Ms. Mboka. Thank you, Ms. Hope and Ms. Chion, and to all participants present in this webinar session. Thank you all for your time. So again, on behalf of GAIN and Wandiville, we thank the panelists and participants for joining this engaging session today. So we hope that the solutions discussed today will be carried forward by policymakers, businesses, mothers, advocates, and all stakeholders in the nutrition space. We hope this is the beginning of continuous conversations, call to action involving nutrition in children and the approaches to improve and impact the nutritional status and health of Africa's future. So please engage with us on our content through our social media handles, on Twitter at NCAfrica, on Facebook, Nutrition Conversations Africa, and on Instagram, nc.africa. Then you can also follow us on LinkedIn at Nutrition Conversations Africa. Thank you all for your time. It's nice to have you here. So we have come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nutrition.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you all for being here with us. It was really great to have you.